Folks, before we start this episode, if you could do one thing, would you please hit that subscribe button? It really helps us out.
And suddenly, out of nowhere, the back doors, slide open. And I wake up with a masked guy, literally, and all I could see were his eyes. And it was the most terrifying thing of my life.
Time to kick the tires and start the fake fire. It's time to camp, and today we are camping with a very special guest. Gregg Sulkin, actor, producer, very good soccer player, arguably the third most handsome man in America, and one of the great British accents of our time. Greg, thank you for camping with us.
That was an unbelievable introduction. Out of curiosity, the third most handsome, I mean, thank you very much, but I'm just curious who is number one and who's number two.
Well, just so we're clear, it was an unscientific poll.
Okay.
All right. And there are 3 people in this van right now. And my producer did want me to say that you are the most handsome man in the van right now. Third, I have to leave room for margin of error.
Right.
Somewhere out there, there's plausibly someone more handsome, right?
I'm sure there's more than 2, that's for sure, but thank you.
That's
I appreciate it.
And for people wondering too, though Greg and I are close, we are actually separated by some space. So, COVID compliant. Strange times.
This is genius in here.
Thank you.
Genius. I love it. I feel like I'm ready to go camping, so this is cool.
Well, you are camping, so this is great. Well, let's get down to our camping trip. My first question is, in the UK, is it called camping? Do we camp? Is it similar? Is there the same sort of cultural camping phenomenon? What do we do in the outdoors in the UK?
I feel like it's called camping, but I wouldn't say it's as glamorous as California camping. I would say I've never heard of the word glamping until I moved to California, because I feel like in England it is most likely, sitting in the mud, lying in the mud, and
that's what you thought it was?
And praying for the best. This is glamping.
Well, this is a carbon neutral fire too, so
Okay.
no emissions coming out of this fire.
Super safe.
So you do go camping, and where you're from, did you have a spot? Like, would your parents go out with a tent as a family and stay in nature?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not. I couldn't imagine my mum and dad around a fire sitting there as a family. It's just something that we didn't do. But I think that over time, I've gone with my friends, and some of the best conversations I've ever had are around a fire, and I just think it's very nice. It's great. You can chat with your mates. You can be romantic. You can do a podcast. I mean, it's.
Do you have a favorite spot around California that you go to for camping, or?
I actually went the other day down to Huntington Beach. There's some great bonfire situations. Down there. So that seems awesome. And then I also went to Santa Barbara too, and I had a great night. I had a great camping day with my friends in Santa Barbara too. I don't know exactly where it was, but I'm more of just kind of go with the flow. If I end up around a campfire, it's a good night.
Okay, all right. So you're obviously known as. Actually, before I even get to that, I want to go back. You talk about family. You in so much of our research on you, you are so effusive in your praise for your mom and dad. And it's so moving. So tell me a little about your family. And it sounds like you had a really good family situation.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I feel like without my family, I wouldn't be anywhere. Wouldn't be doing anything. I mean, I would be doing something, but I wouldn't be doing what
Presumably,
I'm doing now.
yes. You'd be in the mud, as you said earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Just very, very, very special parents. They've really given me and my brother. I just have one older brother. His name's Grant, and we're just very lucky to have them. They've been so supportive. Both my parents grew up with nothing. They didn't grow up in very wealthy families. My mom sacrificed her whole life for me and my brother just to make sure that we were good and we were sort of taken care of, and in a different sense, in the sense of love and having someone always to talk to. And then my dad was the traditional sort of breadwinner, so to speak, of the family, but never went to school, I mean, he did go to school, but he left when he was like 13 or 14. Never had never had any qualifications, and then just worked really hard, and you know, was selling like kitchen knives in marketplaces when he was younger.
Wow.
And then thankfully was, you know, earning some money, and then got into real estate, and then thankfully he was able to then go and provide for me and my brother, and then give me and my brother the education that he was never able to sort of have himself. So I always, yeah, they're very, very, very special parents. They've supported my brother and I in so many different ways. And, you know, I'm sure they've been married for 37 years.
Wow.
And sacrificed a lot for the sake of, you know, family and unity. So I respect them massively. And without my mom, I wouldn't be in LA. So yeah, just, you know, my brother's doing good too. He's married now with 2 kids. So
I was going to say, were you all competitive growing up?
my brother and I were never really that close up until the age of, well, until he was like 18, 19, and I was 15, 16.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, around that. I just always looked up to my brother. No, I was never really competitive with him because I knew he'd always beat me up. So I never wanted to lose. If I played a game with my brother, sometimes I would let him win just because, you know, he didn't like losing, and he was competitive. I wasn't that competitive.
Because you played soccer and very good at it, and have had several injuries from it as well.
Yes.
Were you both soccer players? Did that fuel you guys competitively?
I was the soccer player of the family.
Got it.
My brother thought he was the soccer player of the family.
Got it.
He is very academic.
Okay.
Like in school, he was so smart. He got grades that I would dream of if I worked for 3 years and worked really hard. He just got a different skill set than I did.
Okay, so he was gifted with advanced calculus, and you could kick a ball really far.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Now we were joking on this on the show. We like to talk about like camping as a kid. You grow up and you have all these sort of nostalgic snacks and activities, etc. I'm curious. Growing up in the UK, obviously you didn't grow up here, so I know you can't speak from authority. But do you think that in the UK it's pretty much the same? Like when you're a kid, it's sports, it's bad junk food, it's staying up late playing video games than it is like here.
If we're going younger, of like being a naughty, you know, like a naughty boy, basically, just being like a cheeky boy, I'm sure that runs from England and America because, yeah, you want to stay up late, you want to have fun, you want to eat candy, all the stuff that I think most people do.
Oh, man. All right, so moving on to a little bit of your acting career, you actually, it sounds like you got your start with a rather unconventional role, right? Your drama teacher cast you in a bit against your type a bit. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. The good old days. I was 7 years old. I never wanted to be an actor. I never even watched movies, to be honest, at that point in my life. I was just interested in playing soccer. And my drama teacher, who did not like me, she didn't ask. She basically said that I could have a role in the school play, and it was to play a girl. And I think I was the only girl in the play, or there was like me, or I went to an all-boys school. So they had to choose a boy to...
Do you remember what play it was?
It was called An English Murder.
An English Murder.
And it was about these group of sort of people that went to a Great Gatsby, I think, type of party, and there was a murder. And what happened during... It was all about, solving the crime, who did it, sort of situation. And so I played a girl. I had to put socks down my top. I had to wear a blonde wig. I think I had to wear heels. And I had to sing. And at that point in my life, I could go extremely high in my vocal range. Didn't tell my parents what I was doing. They came to see the show. And then after, my mom was like, Greg, like, you were really, really good. And I was like, wow, I guess if I can...
You're like, thanks?
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Like, I guess I pulled it off, so thank you. And then from that, I sort of had this secret passion or secret love for just performing, I guess. Never really thought anything of it since then. It was just something that I always looked back on the play and thought, wow, that was just a fun time. And then how I broke into the actual entertainment industry was when my mom saw a newspaper article. I came downstairs one morning. She was reading the newspaper. She said, "Oh, they're doing an open casting call for this role." It was to play a Jewish boy who had his bar mitzvah on the same day as the World Cup final back in 1966, which is the only time that England has ever won the World Cup.
Really?
Yeah,
It's
sadly.
been that long?
It's been
That's
that
a
long.
sore subject. Okay.
Sadly. Yeah, it's been too many years to count. But obviously in England, that's such a, the World Cup, that was the only time we won it. So 1966 is a very special date, a year for us. And so I had just had my bar mitzvah because I'm Jewish, and I had it in Israel. So
It's pretty epic. Yeah.
That was one of the most special experiences of my life.
It was on the Western Wall, right?
On the Western Wall. It was unbelievable. And feeling that, just feeling that experience, like it was just so special that when there was an opportunity to play a Jewish boy whose bar mitzvah falls on the same day as the World Cup final back in 1966, I loved football. I loved the World Cup. And I just had my bar mitzvah, so I thought, oh, if they asked me to read Hebrew, like I'm not great, but I could probably, I guess, swing it.
Wow.
And so I went to the audition. I called it an auction because I had no idea. I'd never been to an audition before, and it was the same casting director as the casting director from Harry Potter, and her name was Fiona Weir, and I walked in, didn't know what I was doing, and she ended up 6-7 callbacks later, asked me, basically they cast me in a movie called 66, which Helena Bonham Carter was in. She played my mum, and I just got very, very, very fortunate. It was the best experience of my life. I fell in love with the acting industry even more, and that was the stepping stone into this industry and carrying on.
And that was not of your own free will and volition, right? You were pressured a little bit, right? Your mom was like, please, whatever you do, go to this audition.
For sure. My mom said to me that if I went to the audition, she would never ask me to do another thing ever again. And for a 13-year-old boy, that sounds like that's the bet to place,
That's
right?
a great deal.
I'm likely not going to get it.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to have my mom telling me what to do for the next 5 years of my life. That sounds ideal. But I guess my mom's power kind of crept through the walls, and she encouraged me to get it, and I did, and they've been like that with me ever since, my parents.
Yeah, that's a lot of, I don't call it coincidence. It sounds a little almost predestined, dare I use the word, with that character lining up with so much. That must have felt like you were stepping into a little bit of fate almost.
My whole life, I feel like I've stepped into fate. Genuinely, like I'm a big believer in like manifestation too. This whole journey from when I was 13 getting into the industry to then now me being 28 years old, and I guess now being a young man
in a bus,
in a camping
everything
bus.
Has led you to here
to
being in a bus. Good.
For sure. But it's been a whirlwind, and I there's been so many highs, but there's also been so many lows, and I think those moments, the highs are what you sort of, or what other people talk about, and the lows are what you sort of remember and what you talk to yourself about, because those are the character defining moments. And so, it's been a journey, that's for sure.
So your journey, you start acting in the UK, and then what leads you to cross the pond and join us here in the States where we camp?
What led me here? So I was like 15, 16. I just worked for Disney Channel in the UK. I came over on holiday to Los Angeles. My mom at that point really thought that I had what it takes to, be successful in the industry. And so we came on holiday and we did the Universal tour, on the Universal tour bus.
Oh yeah. The tram ride.
Oh, love
Jaws. Oh yeah, you have the shark. That thing terrified me as a kid. I mean, that's awesome. You have King Kong, right?
The tram ride changed my life.
Oh yeah, you must have had a great tour guide on that one then.
Yeah, it was all about the tour guide. No, I just remember being with my mom and dad and looking at all these sound stages, and thinking to myself, wow, like I want to be working here. And I said to my mom, I want to be working here within the next like year. And she didn't look at me as if I was crazy. She, I think, actually believed it, as did I. So I went back to London. Before I went back to London, I had a meeting with a manager because I had no representation over here. And that was also fate. My dad had a business partner at the time who knew my manager, and she's still my manager 12 years later.
Wow.
And, you know, because people change a lot in this industry, but I feel like my manager has been with me since day one in the United States. So I'm so thankful to her for that. And went back to London, and thought, wow, like that was an unbelievable sort of, like, I want to be in America. So then I think we came back again, like if I'm remembering right, because it was 12 years ago, but I think I came back again a few months later, and I auditioned, and then I ended up having a meeting over at Disney Channel in the US with Judy Taylor and Gary Marsh. And Judy and Gary, they are, I mean, there's been many people throughout my career that have like really helped me, and really helped shape my career. But I would say that if there's one person in particular that really supported me, was probably Judy Taylor at Disney Channel. Obviously, she then needed Gary to approve of having me on the channel in the US, which thankfully happened. But Judy was definitely the person who kind of was in my corner for sure.
Cool.
And I went, I auditioned then for Wizards of Waverly Place, and I read alongside Selena Gomez, and Selena was so lovely. I remember being relatively nervous. I was wearing a pink, I don't know what I was doing, but I was wearing a pink sort of, it wasn't my best look, but my mum thought it worked. And then I went into the audition, and went back to London, and then they called me or emailed me a couple of weeks later and said, hey, like, you got the role. Then we had to figure out all the paperwork and stuff like that. And then now 10 years later, or 11 years later, after moving to the States for Wizards of Waverly Place, I've gone from visa to green card, and now also the journey for me has now led me to become an American citizen, which is such an honor and something I'm so grateful for. So,
oh wow! Congratulations!
Thank you. It's been amazing.
I hear most of us actually wouldn't pass the test. It's actually historically requires quite a bit of knowledge.
It does.
Your brother would probably do well at it.
Yeah, so. My brother would do well. But the booklet is not super thin. It's quite a thick booklet, and yeah, you definitely need to. You need to learn. And the hard part about the last few years has been that there's been so many changes in job titles. So when you're learning of like, oh, who's this person, every week they're changing. So I'm not even like looking at the booklet. I'm just like going online to see like, you know, is it going to change 5 hours before my test?
That's it. Do they have that for the UK? If I wanted to, do I have to do like parliamentary procedure and, you know which wig to wear? And
I'm sure I never researched. Researched it.
We'll have to look into that.
But you'd look good with a wig.
I've considered that. We should run that by wardrobe. That could be our next show.
Sure.
I went to the House of Commons with, and just see. So when you get that, when you get the news that you're going to be an actual wizard,
werewolf.
I'm sorry, on the Wizards of Waverly Place, you'll be a werewolf. What does that feel like? Are you like? Is it surreal? Are you like, oh my gosh, I want to be working with Selena? And what's that like?
I remember rolling over in the morning. I looked at my phone. I can't remember. I think it was a BlackBerry at the time. It must have been a BlackBerry.
Oh, so this was some time ago.
Yeah, this was a minute ago, and it was just. I don't think it ever hit me. I don't think it ever hit me until the show came out of how successful and sort of powerful Selena was, and how much influence she had on people around the world. So I was just excited to work. I love acting. I've always loved this industry. I do care who I work with, but I don't care about who I work with based on like their name, so to speak. Like, I just like to work with people who are like hardworking and know their lines. And are a professional. So for me, and that was exactly the case on Wizards. So that was my main sort of focus, and the one thing that I was grateful for was the fact that I was surrounded in a professional environment with young actual professionals who did their job, cared about their job, and cared about the end product. And I think that's what made Wizards of Waverly Place and Selena the show and the star that now she is.
How does one prepare to be a werewolf? What choice does one make? Did you like not cut your hair for a while? Like what? How does one get in the werewolf space?
I you know what it was? I just went with it. I just committed. I think that's what you got to do, because you could look so silly doing it. If you don't commit,
oh yeah,
then you look even more silly. Like sometimes you just got to go for it, take that leap of faith, and that's what I did. And so there's lots of growling and itching. Itching. There's some itching going on, I guess.
It was. I mean, Wizards. I came of age before the Wizards of Waverly Place, so I was not able to. Although now having, being friends with David too, I probably need to go back and actually like revisit the Wizards. I apparently missed out on it, but so I didn't know. Do you actually transform very like? Is it a full-on werewolf? Like you gotta, like howl at the moon and everything? And
yeah, it's a full. Okay. It's a thing.
It's a thing. All right.
I had to not just howl at the moon, but go through a lot of prosthetics, heavy prosthetics.
Oh, wow.
Takes about 5 hours in makeup, and then about an hour to get rid of it, because it's a whole piece. They glue it onto your face. It was custom made.
Wow. So they don't tell you that about acting. I mean, now granted, not everyone's playing a 5 hours of prosthetics, but like you're getting up early, you're sitting in a chair while people work on you, and this is, a couple days a week. This is a lot. I think it's people see the glamorous side, but this is
for sure.
That must be tough sitting in a chair, having a werewolf thrust upon you.
I wouldn't say it was tough. I would just say sometimes it was more mentally exhausting. Just sitting there and have people prod at your face, around your eyes, and it smelled bad, and the hairs. They had to individually stick the hairs on. But again, I can't complain, because that show gave me everything, and my family were back in London. I was working on the show. I had my appendix out on the show. The crew members were like my family. They supported me. So like at the end of the day, yes, it would have been great if they condensed it down to an hour or 2 hours. But I was just so grateful to be there that, and also you appreciate other parts of the industry. The fact that special effects takes a long time, and they can make or break a show or an actor's performance. I know for me, it actually really helped me once I was fully in that makeup. So I loved it. It was just very time consuming. Absolutely.
And also your first lodging situation was not ideal.
No.
It sounds like you took to Chateau Garage.
Yeah,
right? Tell us about Chateau Garage.
Chateau Garage was a very nice garage. I say garage, but now I've been here so long that it's
part of the citizenship test.
Garage.
That's right. Garage.
Yeah. Basically, when I first moved here, I didn't have like a social security number, so I couldn't really get credit. I couldn't just find an apartment. It wasn't like that easy. They had no one could like check my credit or anything like that. And thankfully I had some family friends who, again, I'm very grateful for, that sort of welcomed me into their house, and I stayed in their garage. And it was like a wooden box. They sort of built this frame. I was on a blow up waterbed. But again, those moments I look back on with such fond memories, because without those moments and without feeling unsettled, there would have been no drive for me to be settled in this country. And so, waking up and not being able to find anything, and waking up not being in the perfect living condition, made me work hard and know my lines even more, so that one day I could hopefully have enough money to then go and provide for myself. I never wanted my dad. I was so grateful for my dad for just supporting me for so long. I didn't want him paying for my life anymore, and so I wanted to take that burden off of his hands. And I hope my kids do that one day too.
Good retirement. So for the record, you no longer live in a garage.
No.
That's good.
Now, thankfully, I was able to
level up. Right? There's an attic or some sort of, you're up top floor now.
Yeah. Now I park in the garage.
That's it. So Wizards of Waverly Place, this tremendous experience. You met a lot of incredible people that have remained by your side, and you've spoken a lot about how those people made all the difference coming out here. Tell us about some of those relationships you made.
I mean, off the top of my head, I know David Henry was absolutely instrumental in not just making me feel calm, but allowing my family to feel calm too. Obviously, they were back in London, and my brother wanted to make sure that I didn't go down a path or like a dark path. So he was happy that David was there, sort of acting in my brother's place, and David was taking care of me and taking me under his wing. And then my parents were happy that David's family, Linda and Jim, were there for me, and so that made them feel calm.
Cool.
And so that was David and his whole family, and Lorenzo too, David's younger brother, who's an unbelievably talented actor. He, all of those, the Henry family were massive to me. They were sort of like my American rock. And then over time, I've had family friends. I've really developed some very important friends along the way. Two of my best friends, one of them is a real estate agent. I've known him who's also David's very close friend. I've been friends with Brandon for 11 years.
Wow.
My other best friends, I mean, my group of best friends I've known for both in the UK and America years. I'm still close with somebody who I met when I was like 5 years old, somebody when I was like 3 years old.
That's cool. So you had a family out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely had a family out here, and got lucky. The Wizards cast were amazing to me. They really were. So they were definitely my first family. And then on every other show that I've worked on, I've developed more family members, I guess. And I've gone through this career making new friends and family members, and everyone's been pretty chill. I really haven't had that many bad experiences. I know you hear of like bad experiences in LA.
So Wizards of Waverly Place opens a ton of doors. When and were movies happening simultaneously with that, or when did you break through into film?
Well, 11 years ago when I first started Wizards, I feel like you could only be a TV star or a film star. The industry's changed so much over the last decade, where now it's so much more fluid. You can go from a movie to a TV show, and
To a bus.
YouTube, to so many different. There are so many different platforms out there. To TikTok. TikTok stars are now doing movies. So the industry's changed. But I think when I first started, it really, Wizards definitely opened the doors for me. But at the end of the day, you can have doors open for you all day long. But like, if you don't know your lines and if you're not good, you're not getting hired. And that's the one thing I think when people always come over to LA, that from my experience, I always sensed that people were just waiting to meet a producer who could help them. And I'm not saying that relationships aren't important, because they are, but the relationships from my own experience have all been gained, and sort of all the relationships have blossomed because hard work was the first thing on the map, so to speak.
I'm actually, that's a good point. When we talk about the work, I think to outsiders, maybe they just think, oh wait, you sit around and you wait for your agent to call. Like, it sometimes feels like there's a helplessness of like, hey, I can only put myself, I can submit myself, or I can wait for auditions to happen. But you do hear about, and you've talked about this, how there's not a lot of overnight successes. A lot of these folks are busting their butt for years. So what is the hard work, like the grind, that maybe we don't see when it comes to acting and pursuing a career in entertainment?
Well, I think the one thing about acting is it's not just the work on the page. Work on the page is very important. Obviously, character development, making sure that you understand the script, understand the character, understand the world, and implementing yourself into that, and sort of making bold choices, making unique choices. That's one part. But I think the other part is also making sure that you are so thick-skinned that when rejection does come your way, because in this acting industry it is coming, making sure that you are strong enough mentally and physically, but mentally most importantly, to deal with it, and also be able to not be so egotistical and sort of precious in a way that you're able to take constructive criticism. And I think the one thing, that's why I'm so happy I played soccer growing up, was like when my coaches would tell me that what I'm doing wrong, I used to see two different reactions. I used to see my reaction and then some of my teammates' reactions. My teammates would get upset. They would cry. They would be hurt. They would just kind of go into a shell. When a coach said something to me, and even if they shouted at me, I would actually like listen and be like, okay, obviously, like maybe they're right. Maybe what they're saying can be helpful to me. And I think that with the acting industry, I definitely think taking constructive criticism and taking notes is a very important part in the development of an actor. And not saying that all notes are right, and not saying that just because a director's coming over and telling me XYZ that they're correct, but just be open-minded enough to sort of explore. And I think for me, the hard work was, a lot of it was mental too, not just going to an audition, doing the best job.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like LeBron, for example. Also, acting classes are very important, but like LeBron James, like there's no way he just turns up to the basketball court and just wins. Like he won many, many months ago before he even stepped on the court, because of how hard he was working and how mentally focused that he was. He had already won the 2020 NBA championships, in my opinion, before they even went into the bubble. Totally. So I definitely think it's a mindset too.
What do you think people in entertainment right now could be doing more, something that you've learned that like maybe this would pay off a lot more and you see is not done enough? Is there something that you're like, this would benefit a lot of people in entertainment if they did this more?
I definitely think it's important. I mean, look, we could all do more. I could do more. I think the minute you feel like you can't do more is that you're wrong, because you can always be doing more. I think we now live in a generation where, this is one of the most powerful tools in the world. Like anyone can click a button and it goes to everywhere. It goes across the globe. And I think that if we're able to take the one thing actors, and I feel this too, was I was so tired and so frustrated of somebody else telling me yes, and my career and destiny being into somebody else, in someone else's hands, and I really didn't enjoy that feeling. And so the one thing about TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, like not just also in the acting industry, but I feel, are the generation of the youngest CEOs to ever exist, because we are all young CEOs, because you have your own Instagram page or you have your own YouTube channel. Like you are your own boss. And I think that now the destiny is in our hands more than it's ever been ever. And I think if we can all take advantage of that, I think that's really cool.
I did read somewhere that you and 785 million other people would like to play Bond at some point. So honestly, I think I don't know if they have or selected someone after Daniel Craig. So if things continue, right, they'll get about 10, you get 10 years about as Bond, right? So you could be poised right as you're coasting into mid-30s, right, to make a name for that, right?
For sure. I don't think I'm there yet. I think I need to do some more work.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay.
I need to make sure that I earn that role, because that's not a role just I want to do that franchise and that character proud.
That would be so awesome. I mean, I hate that, I could never even fathom it because I don't have a proper British accent. So I know that's the main disqualifier for me.
Well, I mean, you can always learn an English accent.
We were talking about TV and film and being able to do both, and you started booking some film roles, and so you said that it's actually changed now, where you actually expected to do both and you're able to do both now. And also you're moving into you want to move into producing more and actually taking even more control of your content,
For
right?
sure.
So what is I guess I would like to ask, do you prefer TV, film? As one stand out over the other, or are they both just different mediums that you enjoy?
There's something very special about movies because there's a very special experience about going to the movie theaters, which is obviously something that I miss massively during this period. I love going to the movies. I think it's so special. Obviously, TV. What's special about TV is the quality of TV is unbelievable. I mean, some of these budgets that certain shows have, uh, you can tell that the industry is transitioning over to TV and sort of streaming. But I hope that we hold on to to some movies for sure.
I miss going to the theater too, man. That was so fun, and it was worth the $25 of popcorn. No butter. I know you're a health geek.
Yeah, no butter.
I know, but man, I miss going to the theater.
Oh, of course. It was just such a great experience. The sound system, I mean, look, if you look at a show like Stranger Things, for example, that's a very expensive show. And don't get me wrong, it's a great show. It's extremely well executed. I've actually got a couple of friends on the show who have done an amazing job, and to see their careers just blow up has been unreal. But it's I wouldn't say it's the same as Stranger Things in a movie theater and Stranger Things on a TV is a whole different experience.
Totally.
And so I never want the movie experience to completely die.
Yeah,
because I think that would be a shame.
Where do you see the industry? Actually, we talked with David about this, and he was talking about this is the year, the film you guys did together, and how the taking control of your premiere. And I think that's such an amazing model where instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on an actual physical premiere, you can do a virtual one and get all this data and sell tickets, and it's great. But beyond that, where do you see the industry going right now? I think I heard you talk about robots that could impersonate actors.
See, movie making is a risk, and the one thing once you've spent a bit of time in this industry is you realize that it is a business. And although that we from our side, the creative people, it's full of passion, but there are suits, so to speak, that run this industry and that are in control of and look at things simply from a numerical point of view.
It has come to that time for s'more stories. For thousands of years, it has been said that the recipe for a person's s'more is like gazing into their soul. So join us now as Gregg Sulkin opens up his culinary kimono to tell us about his perfect s'more. Look, the last thing you need is for another ad to tell you how awesome a product is. Superfood organic brew coffee. You don't need to hear how smooth it is. So smooth. Or how it features functional ingredients like lion's mane. And I would never presume that my words could sway you into purchasing this most delicious brew. But seriously, buy this coffee. It's amazing, and it just might change your life.
As a parent, have you often sworn that you want to minimize screen time? Let's be honest, you're gonna cave. Why not let your kids do something useful on the tablet, like Vooks, the online streaming library of kid-safe, ad-free books that are read aloud to your child? Let's talk to two actual bookworms.
Bookworms?
What do you guys think of Vooks? Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I can actually do it way, way, way better.
That's probably not necessary. That's me. All right, Jeb, do you like Vooks?
Yes.
Yes. Jeb.
Yes.
What's the last Vook that you watched?
You're not scared.
I am not scared.
What are you scared of?
Bad guys.
I'm scared of spiders.
If I'm a friend with If spiders, I will like it.
You-
That spider.
Max, it's your turn to pick a book. Ruckus on the Ranch? What's that about? Causing a ruckus on the ranch. Causing a ruckus on the ranch. Do you actually read the words?
Yeah.
Is that why you're so smart?
No.
No?
What would you?
You're causing a ruckus on the set. You're causing a ruckus on the set. Head on over to join.vooks.com/redeem. Enter promo code WENTCamping for $25 off your Vooks subscription, which is basically 6 months of free Vooks. That's amazing. Do it now.
Take it away.
Take it away.
Well, I have a sweet tooth, so there's two types of s'mores that I would go for. The one that I think everybody would enjoy, truthfully, is standard graham cracker, right? Then a Twix, which is an English chocolate. Wow. Obviously melted with the fire. Then just warm it up first. You know, get that Twix. Just let it warm up. Then I would like to put a slice of banana on top of it. Then a freshly cut strawberry. Then I would like to get another Twix. Really, really, really melt that Twix. Or like a part of the Twix. On top, I forgot the marshmallow. Marshmallow, banana, strawberry, and 2 Twixes either side. That is, in my opinion, a wonderful s'more.
Well, I think I speak for all three of us in the van when I say I wish we had that s'more handy. So, wow, that's good. That was, and no cucumber like David Henry's s'more. That's good.
Well, I clearly David doesn't know what the potential of what a s'more can be.
Little known fact that here in the United States, it actually violates federal law if you do not tell a scary story when around a campfire for longer than 45 minutes. To make sure we are in compliance with both COVID regulation and scary story protocol, we've invited Gregg to share a spooky or scary story from his past with us now.
So, I was in the south of France. It was New Year's Eve. I was in the car. I was in the back seat of a car with my mum. In front of my mum and I were 2 family friends. One was an Israeli fighter pilot and his wife, who are still close family friends of ours. In the car ahead was my dad, my brother, and another close family friend of ours who was about 6'4". He was a big boy. So I fall asleep on my mother's lap. Suddenly we're at a traffic light, but there's traffic ahead and we don't know why there is traffic ahead. So suddenly the cars are stopping and now we come to a halt. And suddenly out of nowhere, the back doors, slide open. And I wake up with a masked guy, literally, and all I could see were his eyes. And it was the most terrifying thing of my life. So basically, our car got hijacked, basically. And they were all masked up. They were going for like my mum's jewelry, the person ahead's jewelry, and they were trying to get in the car. And just then, the person the person in front of me who was driving, like I said, was an Israeli fighter pilot. He had thankfully quick reflexes, elbowed one of them, punched the other one. As he punched the other one, he also accidentally hit his wife in the face. And then my mom was just screaming, thinking they were trying to like take me. And then it was just like a very traumatic experience. And they come out of the car, we're screaming. My dad and my brother and the person in front of our car came running after them. And then they were running away, and then they just sprayed tear gas. And then I just remember my brother, my dad, and the person that they were with running into the cloud. Then they were like screaming, they were crying on the floors in the middle of south of France. And then that moment has always made me lock my car doors whenever I get in the car. As soon as I get in the car, I'm always lock the doors, because waking up with somebody masked up and you can only see their eyeballs is the most frightening thing ever. And for my mom, she thought her boy, i.e. me, was about to get taken, but it was one that definitely scarred us. My family, I will say, we've been lucky, but we've been lucky in unlucky circumstances. Like, I think we've had our house robbed a few times. Somehow my parents always seem to be in the house too when it happens. I don't really know, but thankfully, touch wood, good part of being by a campfire, you got a lot of wood. Thankfully, I live to tell the campfire story.
Wow. Well, Mark, make sure the bus is locked right now. Jeez. Well, that is the scariest story. That's terrifying,
Yeah,
right?
terrifying.
Wow. That sounds like the beginning of a Liam Neeson movie.
It was, honestly, it was...
How old were you?
I was probably 9, 10.
Jeez. Well, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are locked. We're
Nice.
locked and loaded. So,
Nice.
so you have, in several interviews, mentioned one of my favorite quotes that you gave was you're a big fan of water, and you said it's perhaps God's finest creation, that you feel most at home by the water, which apparently a lot of people do, which is why I guess the home prices are so close to near the water.
For sure.
It may be God's finest creation, but you've talked a lot about that, used the word blessing, etc. But what is God to you? What is a relationship with God like? What role does that play in your life?
I mean, I feel like it's a huge part of my life. I think, look, I'm so open-minded when it comes to religions. I have friends that are Muslim, Christian, Catholic, Jewish, atheist. Personally, just my belief, though, is that I find it very hard to believe that this world was created the way it is, and how beautiful it is if God didn't have a part to play in it. And so I feel that at the end of the day, I may feel like it's a coincidence, or certain things are a coincidence, but I don't actually think that anything is a coincidence. I think that anytime I'm having a bad day, I always found myself sort of asking or trying to speak to God. And so that always sort of like stood out to me in the sense of, well, at the end of the day, I'm just an individual. And I think that when I used to travel, you know, when you take an airplane and then you look down on, you know, I've skydived and that was an unbelievable experience and it kind of put everything into perspective. But, you know, I go about my day and I've got this complaint or I've got this passion or this. And so many, my personal life is so complex, but everybody's life is so complex. And it makes sense to me that only God could look after this world. I don't think any individual has the power, the strength to take care of the world. And I think that God created this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful planet, and I just happen to be part of it, and only a part of it for a little bit of time. You know, I always find peace in God. I always find peace in the water, because at the end of the day, God is so much bigger than me, and I feel like so much bigger than everything. And so I just sometimes look up to the stars literally and think, wow, this is truly magical. And I'm not gonna be here forever. You know, I will one day, hopefully later on in life, but I don't know. You know, I've had friends pass away suddenly, and it puts everything into perspective. So I just feel lucky to be alive. I feel very blessed, and yeah, I love the fact that in my eyes, God created this planet, and I'm just happy to be part of it.
That's awesome. And so you do pray, you do
Mhm.
talk to God, and what does it look like? Is that just is it a casual conversation? Is it more formal? Is it a posture? Is it or is it just how does that look to you?
I definitely my lowest points, I have always gone to God, always, and every time I've been just so thankful God was there. Like truthfully, like massively helped me in those moments. And so I think the beauty of God and the beauty of my relationship with God is the fact that I believe and I feel that God doesn't judge how I pray or my version of praying or what I'm wearing. I know some people, for example, they want to go to church, which I respect, and they want to go to church and they want to dress up, and I completely respect that and it's their way of sort of showing a sign of respect, and I completely get that. But there's moments when there's moments in life when I've done that. I've dressed up to go to a place of worship. But there's also times when I've been in my sweats, on the edge of my bed, and prayed and just given thanks. And I think that over the course of my life, I feel that probably it's got less formal because I feel like God is always with me, and I think that it's pretty special. I feel like I a version of prayer in my eyes is giving thanks, and even if it's simple things as when food comes to the table, just if I'm not saying it out loud, I just always try to remind myself like, wow, okay, like there are people right now that don't have food. There are people that don't click on a phone and order Postmates, and it doesn't just come to them. And so I just feel very like lucky, and yeah, I just think that in my version of prayer differs depending. There's no strict sort of regiment, so to speak. And if somebody wants to, I know a few people. I think we know a few people that that pray religiously at a certain time every single day, and I respect that, and I think that's awesome. And what I do love about God and religion, I don't like how religion sometimes divides people. I don't think God ever created religion to do that. I just think that that's sort of developed over time. But I just think that if you follow religion, on the whole, it makes you quite a decent person. Like it's a decent. You have like decent morals, or you're just a decent human being, and so that's why I'm so open-minded to religion. I respect all religions because at the end of the day, I think that we are all connected and children of God. And that's why one thing that does inspire me to do well in this industry is by having a voice and having a platform, you're then able to have more people listen to you, and if you have positive things to say, it spreads more positivity. And I think that sometimes my happiest days are when I feel like I'm making God proud.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of God's graciousness, there's a special lady in your life.
Yes.
And tell us about her.
She, not to get into her like religious beliefs, because I'll let her obviously talk about that, but she's definitely changed my life for the better. She's a very hard worker. She comes from a very good family, and I think both of us connect. Our foundation is very similar of who we are and how we were sort of raised and how we were built. And so that's why I think that because our personal foundations are quite similar, it's allowed us to have like a very healthy and strong foundation in our own relationship.
How did y'all meet, you and Michelle?
We met through, well, I have a friend. she showed me a photo of Michelle because she was on Instagram, and Michelle was shooting a movie at the time, and I had met her co-star a few weeks prior, who was like a lovely, lovely, lovely guy. And so I think Michelle was dating somebody at the time, and so obviously, you know, she was dating someone. So then I reconnected with my friend like a few weeks later, and she was like, oh, you know that girl that we were talking about? Because I saw a photo and I was like, oh my god, Michelle's like so pretty. She said to me, she was like, oh, by the way, she's single. And so we sort of connected via the internet. And then I just remember I remember going to her house for the first time, and I hadn't met her, and she was like, wait, what do you mean, like, well, you're coming to my house?
Wait, from the internet to the house?
Like, no. Like, so we met outside, and at the time I was driving a Maserati, which was not my car. It was not my car. It was, thankfully, Maserati at the time had sort of lent me the car to drive around.
That's nice.
Which was awesome. I loved the car they gave. Was like ridiculous, and it was just
she
like,
never stood a chance.
it was one of those moments where I was just like, wow. So I remember the first thing, and also the worst part of it was that there was nowhere to park on her street, and so I knew I wasn't going to be there for long, and I wasn't really getting out of the car, but there was no other place to kind of at least be in the loading zone aside from like a disabled spot. And I remember I really don't like it when people park in disabled spots, because someone needs to park there that's disabled. Like they can't park there.
But
obviously I was going to move if someone came. But point is, she sees this guy that she's never really spoken to properly or met prior pulling into a disabled spot in a Maserati. I probably looked like the biggest.
and she still went out with you?
Well, the first thing I did say was, as I got out of the car, I said, just so you know, this car does not belong to me, and I'm so sorry for parking in the disabled spot. And then I think after that, she sort of like warmed up. But I think my first impression was not a great one, to be honest. You know?
That's a great story. Wow. Okay. And that was 2 years ago, roughly?
Yeah, over 2 years ago.
Wow. That's awesome.
But she's great. You know, it is like one of those things, you hear it time and time again, but she's definitely helped me focus, and she's definitely been a massive support in my life, allowed me to sort of have, you would think that a girlfriend or a relationship or a wife would sort of distract you, but in fact it's the opposite. She's really given me that foundation to just have the freedom to be calm and then be able to sort of focus on what's important in my life. And I think that comes with age too, but I definitely think that having a great woman in your life or a great partner helps you focus.
Totally. So it sounds like I need a really nice car. And also it sounds like despite all we've discussed with social media, it does have its perks.
Oh, for social media, for sure. I'm definitely not saying social media is a bad thing. We can connect with people around the world. Thankfully, with technology, I've been able to speak to my parents every day.
That's cool.
Social media is amazing. I just think it's really important that we take it. I just think everybody should go watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix, and then they will understand what I'm saying. I definitely think there are amazing things that social media has provided us. And again, allowed people to be their own CEO. I'm definitely not saying that it's bad, but I will say, let's just make sure that we are aware of the negative. It's literally like taking a drug without understanding its side effects. Totally. And that is how I view social media. Like, medicine can definitely help, but too much medicine is not good. You know, everything in moderation.
Totally. Last question before we do our gratitude finale. Do you what is something that you wish you had known going into your journey that you would like to pass on to the next generation?
Next generation meaning my kids?
It could be kids, just or those who follow, and it could be career, or it could be anything. If there's just something, if there's any lesson that you feel like you've learned that you're like, man, I wish I had known that, and I would like anyone who follows in my footsteps to know this.
yeah, I think if there's a general message that I would say to people, I think it would be one that dreams absolutely can come true. And mindset is extremely powerful. Like, never underestimate yourself, never doubt yourself. I understand that doubt can happen, but really, my mom has always said to me, which is I want my next tattoo to be, but she always says, like, believe and receive. And so I really would encourage people to believe it so wholeheartedly that you will then receive it. Obviously, believe in good things that are coming, you know. And also, let's just make sure that we are kind to people who sort of were before us. You know, it's sort of like a respect your elders sort of thing, which is how I've always lived my life. You know, it's funny. I know that, like, especially during COVID, you'd hear so many young people say, like, well, why are we shutting down? Or, you know, tell the elderly to sort of stay at home. And it's like, well, you know, I heard a few things like, oh, tell the elderly to stay at home so that we can sort of like protect the economy. And it's like, well, don't forget that the people before you sort of built that economy too.
Yeah.
The economy that you are now benefiting from has been through people working extremely hard over the last 2, 3, 4 decades. And so I just definitely think we've got to respect our elders, be kind to one another, and yeah, on a personal note, believe and receive. And then to my kids, who I'm sure will be watching this one day, who aren't alive yet, but I would say to my kids that I have I feel that everything that I do and everything I work towards today is for them in the future. And even Michelle always says to me, she's like, yeah, but you should enjoy stuff now for yourself. And I'm thinking, like, well, yeah, but I saw what my dad did for me, and so I feel like I have that responsibility to my future kids. And that's always, I've been sort of thinking about them for since I was 20 years old. And so I think that when they are born, I would love them to do the same for their kids and encourage their kids to do the same for their kids. Because I think it's important, and I would, you know, I just think it's important to look after one another, and also like look after the name that my dad and mum have built together, and then hopefully, you know, what I do and just continue and be proud of the family name. So I feel like that's what I would like.
2020, brutal year for a
Yes.
lot of people, which, I mean, we're sitting divided by glass in a bus. But
Crazy.
we like to end on a positive note here. So a little bit of a gratitude lightning round here. What is something you're enormously grateful for?
Well, I was going to say everything.
You can say anything. Just, you can name 5 things, whatever you want.
Okay. What am I grateful for? Definitely my house. I'm grateful for warm food, access to clean drinking water, friendships for sure, and to be able to do something that I absolutely love.
Awesome. What's a perfect Saturday?
Not getting out of sweatpants. Well, working out first when my knee's better. Working out first, having a nice healthy breakfast, watching a TV show in my sweats, doing work in my sweats, and having my mates over too, and having
In their sweats.
in their sweats. I just don't like it when people try too hard. I just think, just be who you are. I prefer that vibe.
That's awesome. You do love sweats. I appreciate that.
I do.
Been mentioned numerous times here, so hopefully.
I do. I just thought, because this is this is on camera, that I decided to wear jeans, although they are sort of like stretchy jeans.
That's good.
I don't like being...
No, constricted.
No,
I'm with you.
you know?
That's why mine are a little more.
Yeah.
I'll ask you. If somehow we can get this to your mom or whatever, or dad, what would you want to say to them right now?
I feel like I get emotional when I talk to my mom and my dad.
That's exactly why we're asking that.
Just yeah, I don't know, just it's been like they've just like done everything for me, and just it's been really hard this year because obviously I haven't like seen them. But Mum, I love you. Dad, I love you. And yeah, just very, very grateful for their support, and I hope that like one day I can be as good as parents as them for sure. And they've just been just sacrificed so much, just such selfless people. So definitely that.
Your parents sound awesome, man.
They're great. They're awesome. They really are very special people.
Oh, man. Well, to the Sulkins, thank you for giving us Gregg. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, he appreciates it. So, Gregg, unfortunately, our camping trip is about to end. I so appreciate camping with you. If I did not think 2 years ago that I would be camping with a werewolf.
Yeah, and I never thought I'd be camping with you either. But here we are.
That's right. So thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Folks, really appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time on I Went Camping With. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you want to help us out, and we're confident you do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube channel. And if you ever feel like just listening to these, you can check us out on all major podcast streaming platforms by just searching for I Went Camping With. And there, you should also subscribe. Thanks again, folks.